Sure, I guess Stone will just do the intro, and we'll go.
Mhm.
Yeah, I could just do the intro, then you can just take it from there, Htata. So we have an official debate happening. We have Footsoldier here, we have Htata. Footsoldier is going to be taking the position that common dictionary definitions of the word vegan are all wrong. Htata is taking the opposition. As always, when we based upon who concedes, if we don't get a vocal concession, we'll put it to a voting poll in which you, the audience, can vote on who you think performed better overall in the debate. You guys can get started.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Stone. So the first question I have is, how do we define wrong in this proposition? Is it more close to objectively wrong, that it is 100% inaccurate about how it describes these words or explains them? Or is it more that it is misleading and somewhat inaccurate?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and one that I wanted to clarify myself right at the start. And of course, we don't need to have like any sort of metaphysical discussion about anything. We can just say that something is wrong here if it does not seem to uh, correspond to what we believe the word is supposed to denote. So, for example, if we're talking about running, and then you give me some definition where the person's like laying down or doing something other than what I would call running, then I'll just say that that definition's wrong because it doesn't correspond to what I would commonly associate with the word, right? So in the case of veganism, like the way that I see veganism, my understanding of veganism has something to do with, well, like ethics is the first and foremost thing. It's an ethical position. It um, it is a philosophical position or a moral position, deontological position. It's something about exploitation of animals and the relationship between humans and non-human animals and these sorts of things. And from that, then there's implications of, well, what do we eat then if we don't eat animals and stuff like this. But
Mhm.
first and foremost, veganism has to do with the philosophy and the ethical position. It doesn't say what a vegan eats. It just says what a vegan believes, or a description, sort of like of the kind of thing that a vegan believes. A set of ideas. Maybe there's slight deviations, but we're just talking about an approximate picture
Mhm.
of what it means to be a vegan. And it
So
seems like the
I think we
definitions
could
just don't.
agree that
Yeah,
common dictionaries are like they do not contain nuance and they're misleading to an extent,
yeah. Well,
especially
then
to
you
someone
concede the
who's
proposition.
no. I would say that this is okay. So here we go into the next contention. What ought we do about common dictionaries?
Uh,
Do we not
what
use common dictionaries, or do we not defer to them as authorities when we are debating certain topics? Because I don't defer to common dictionaries when I want to debate a very specific topic. Because
right?
then,
So
if I'm using something like embedded narrative or diegetic, I don't go to a common dictionary to explain those words. I use sources. I go to like the Oxford Concise Literary, like the Oxford Concise Dictionary of Literary Terms.
yeah, sure. Uh, so what I take your saying by that is, for example, if I want to, like a classic example I always use is the word absurd. If I look up the word absurd
Hmm.
in a common dictionary, it's going to say something like bizarre or completely preposterous or something like this. But if I
Different
look it
from the
up,
existential.
yeah, if I look it up in a philosophy um, encyclopedia of philosophy, I'm going to get talk about existentialism. I'm going to be talking about reductio ad absurdum and things that have actual specific technical applications. But
Hmm.
that's because the meaning, the colloquial meaning of the word absurd, is what the dictionary defines. It correlates. It corresponds to what we seem to mean when we use the word absurd. There's nothing wrong with the colloquial definition corresponding to the way that it's colloquially used. Of course, it's not the right definition if we want a technical sense in a specific case. But when we're talking about veganism and defining what a vegan is, it would just simply be wrong to start talking about food. It's not the food. it's the ethical position which entails dietary adjustment, right? So it's in whatever context. It's not like there's some technical sphere in which this common definition's wrong, but it's right in a colloquial sense. No, it's wrong in every sense, right? Because it doesn't represent what is meant by a vegan or veganism more specifically.
But it's not supposed to represent it 100%. It's supposed to appeal to the common layperson that is not into those ethical propositions. Like, wouldn't an ethical vegan not consume any animal products? There is some truth to it. It doesn't necessarily have to explain everything about veganism.
So I could quite easily come up with cases of people who I would call vegan eating animal products, right?
Hmm.
And I could I could say that I eat animal products myself, even in trace forms. Like if something says may contain egg, I eat that anyway. I don't care. Like some people avoid that. Some people say, "Oh, it's not vegan to eat may contain egg foods." I don't give a shit. I eat it if it may contain egg. If it hadn't got egg as an ingredient, then then that's fine for me. But it may contain egg, so that means they probably use egg as part of the process, and then they like just run the one without egg through it, and it will get contaminated with the egg, and it's likely to have egg all over it. Or if I go to like a kebab shop and order a vegan burger, and they like fry it on the same shit as the meat, like maybe
Hmm.
it's not so nice, and I don't really like this. Like in Burger King, there was a big controversy over this, but I don't really care that much. I wouldn't say I'm not vegan if I go to Burger King and get the vegan burger, right? The plant-based burger at Burger King. That doesn't make me not vegan, right? So I eat animal products, and I'm an ethical, quote unquote, ethical vegan. I think it's redundant to say ethical vegan because veganism is an ethical position. Um, but but yeah, so it doesn't even describe what a vegan is, right? Because vegans eat animal products
Hmm.
in trace amounts and even in overt amounts, right? So you've got a case where there's a YouTuber called Vegan, so Veg Ann, or however you want to pronounce that. She had backyard chickens, rescue chickens, and they were producing all these eggs. And she was letting the chickens like eat some of the eggs so they could reabsorb the calcium, because she was like trying to care for them as best as she possibly could. But at the end of the day, there was just all of these eggs, and she was like, "What do I do with these eggs? Do I sell them?" And she was like, "Well, if I sell them, then I'm perpetuating the idea that eggs are things that we should eat. But I don't want to do that. So should I give them away for free?" And she thought, "Well, I don't know if I want to promote eggs in my street and say that eggs are a commodity. So
But
what
I
do I
think
do?
we
Do I chuck
agree
them
on
away?"
this point that
Yeah,
the dictionary, the common dictionary, isn't supposed to be 100% accurate. It attempts to simplify and it does not work as an authority. It's not a dictionary that dictates the word. It is the dictionary that reflects how the words are being used.
exactly. But it
Hmm.
doesn't reflect how the word is being used, right? Because vegan, like she decided to eat a few of the eggs rather than chuck them away. She's like, I might as well eat some of them. And I
Hmm.
don't consider her not vegan for doing that. I wouldn't personally do that, but I wouldn't say she's one of the most vegan people that I know, like on YouTube. Like she's very ethically uh well. She thinks about her ethics very rigorously, and she thought about the issue quite a lot, and she just decided in the end that she didn't like the fact that she was eating the eggs. But at one point, she was eating eggs, and I'm not going to say, "Oh no, you're not vegan." Of course, he was vegan, right? In that particular circumstance, because there's no
Hmm.
exploitation. I would argue that she was seeing the chickens. Like if she was seeing the eggs as food, she was seeing the chickens as something that produced food, which maybe there's some problem with that for me. But the dictionary definition of defining someone who doesn't eat animal products, that doesn't get at what vegan is at all, because you could have someone who is just simply intolerant to some animal products or most animal products, and so for health reasons we're just like, oh no, fuck that, I can't eat any of this stuff. They're just on a plant-based diet. They're not vegan at all. They might go hunting. They're not vegan.
Sure, and I agree. We could poke holes at all the definitions used in common dictionaries. Again, they're common, they're not meant to be specialized. There are separate dictionaries to each field of study. I think there are dictionaries for doctors, dictionaries for engineers, dictionaries for literary critics. What I'm trying to say is, what do we do about it? Because I
Yeah,
think that's a feature, not a bug of common dictionaries.
well, I feel like I already addressed your point there, right? Because if I want to know what the word absurd means and I look it up in a normal dictionary, of course I'm going to get the colloquial definition. And if I look it up in the philosophical uh, place, then I'm going to get the philosophical definition, right? So we need to look the word up in the right dictionary. However, what I'm saying is the word veganism, all of the common dictionaries, they're not defining it in the colloquial sense. Like the word absurd in a normal dictionary is defined in the colloquial sense, and that's fine. It's the way that I use the word absurd in the colloquial sense. So it's absolutely bang on, accurate how I use it. Nothing wrong with it. In the dictionary, when I look up veganism or vegan, it doesn't tell me anything close to what it actually means to be a vegan. It says something like don't doesn't consume animal products. Some of them don't even say about consuming or like wearing leather or going to the zoo, but that's a big part of veganism as well. It doesn't say anything about exploitation or about the uh, way that we view sentient beings. It doesn't say any of that. It paints literally a false picture. It's telling me the wrong thing. It's like I look up the word car and it tells me something with 6 wheels. And I'm like, what? That doesn't tell me at all what I'm looking at.
Yeah, and if you look at the engineer manual of car, you're gonna find a much more accurate definition.
But the colloquial definition for car in the dictionary is fine. It will probably say
Hmm.
something like um,
I mean, like, think of a
internal
common
combustion engine.
dictionary in this way. Let's say a doctor is talking to an engineer and they stumble upon the word vegan. They're both non-specialists in philosophy and they need something to help clear up the picture to an extent.
Yeah.
The question
So,
is, so your problem is with the word itself and how it was defined and that you want to change it to become more
oh,
accurate?
like, well, that's not part of the debate proposition that I want to change it or want to do anything with this information. The debate proposition is just about me arguing that they're wrong, and I think I've presented a case that they are wrong, and to a certain extent, you're already agreeing with me that they don't represent what it means to be a vegan. So, like, I think so far I've satisfied the debate
Hmm.
proposition,
But then what
and
we
it
do
seems
about
that you
them?
agree.
We could like
Yeah,
shift
but
it. Hmm.
that's a separate matter. It seems like what we want to do about that.
Yeah.
Like if we're arguing, for example, that abortion's wrong, and you
Hmm.
agree with me that abortion's wrong, what we're going to do about that is some separate additional matter, which
True,
is
true,
not
true.
part of the debate.
Oops. I guess I concede then.
Cool, man. Well, not nice
The
one.
wrong here, but let's define what wrong means. For me, it is misleading and lacking context and nuance.
Yeah, sure. Well, it is
Hmm.
misleading, right? Because if I look up the word vegan and it says someone who doesn't eat animal products, that doesn't tell me what vegan is.
Hmm.
That's maybe like potentially the diet, but it might not be the diet. But it doesn't tell me what vegan is. Like I'm still guessing. It's like it's like I look up the word for guitar and it says Joe Satriani. Uh, Joe Satriani plays a song or something like this, and I'm like, what?
Hmm.
Like, well, that's not telling me what a guitar is. It's not saying like six-stringed instrument can be electric or acoustic, etc. Like it's not telling me any of that. Um if I look up the word vegan, I want to see something like the Leslie Cross 1951 definition of
Hmm.
veganism is the doctrine that man should live without exploiting animals, and some sort of description of, well, because of this ethical belief, it therefore follows that most vegans choose to abstain from eating most animal products. And then it could say something about freeganism, or it could say something about something else. But to look up veganism and it says there someone who doesn't eat animal products, that's just empirically false. I
I
eat animal
mean,
products all the
the
time.
Merriam-Webster definition is a little bit more accurate. It says one who abstains from using animal products, but that would be
Abstains
overly
from using
pedantic.
animal products, but that doesn't talk about exploitation by going to the
Hmm.
zoo. It doesn't talk about um,
Yeah.
the sort of like supporting um, industries which are immoral. It doesn't talk. It has no. It doesn't convey what a vegan
And
is.
that's a feature, not a bug. Again, a common dictionary. It's not supposed to be overly pedantic or accurate. It's supposed to facilitate a somewhat clear understanding of what the word means, but not too much to get into detail. These are
Well,
for those specialists who want to know about the ethical implication, what does veganism actually entail, and so forth.
sure. Well, I feel like we've already got a concession, but now we're going back, and that's fine.
Hmm.
I'll address it. Well, as already stated, I've got no problem with there being a lack of technical nuance, right? So if I look up a car and it says something that people use for transportation, often has four wheels, might have three, often is internal combustion engine, but might also be electric. Uh, Something like this. Like it's not telling me specifically any engineering knowledge. Like I'm not illuminating myself as to any technical. I don't know about conrods, pistons, crankshafts, camshafts, tappets. Like it's not telling me anything about that.
Hmm.
It's just telling me some vague layman description of a car, and I'm totally fine with that. And if like you looked up veganism in the dictionary, it says something layman like a person who believes it's wrong to exploit animals, so they often don't eat animal products or go to the circus or wear leather. Then I'd be like, wow, that's actually something that's sort of descriptive of a vegan. But it doesn't.
Hmm.
It says someone who doesn't eat animal products, and that's literally just false. That's just
Hmm.
empirically false.
Yeah, and I would even agree with you in adding the definition of fascism and how it fails to capture what fascism actually entails. You have to read like an entire book to understand fascism.
Uh, sure, but if I looked up fascism, I would be happy with it saying something like political ideology of authoritarianism, and prominent fascists included Stalin and Hitler and Mussolini, and like just a short description that would suffice. Like I'd be totally okay with that. Like I now know what it means. I now know that fascism is an authoritarian political ideology.
Uh,
Now I've got
well,
information about what I'm looking up. But when I look up the word vegan, I've not got information uh, about what I'm
again,
looking
no,
up.
fascism is very lacking. Like, we didn't talk about contempt for the weak. Like, pacifism is like trafficking with the enemy, masochism and machismo and weaponry, uh, the fear of difference, xenophobia, and like
Yeah, but
being
look,
obsessed with
man,
race.
look, man. I know sort of in a layman way, in a very
Hmm.
non-technical layman way, what fascism is, and everything you've just said there, I didn't know. So I
Hmm.
don't care about all of that stuff. It's not necessary for me to understand what fascism is because I understand on a basic level what fascism
We
is,
could say
right?
the same about vegan. So you're arguing that this basic level is not um, conveyed, or you don't reach it from reading the word vegan from the dictionary?
Yeah, it's just not the same thing as what vegan is.
But you're very knowledgeable. I would assume that you're very knowledgeable of veganism and you have read a lot of books about it. How can you tell? Have you tested this onto anyone who had never heard of veganism before?
Someone comes to me and says, "Oh, vegan means that you don't eat animal products, right?" And I'll say, "No, no, sorry, you're mistaken. That's not what it means. It means that um, I think it's wrong to exploit animals, and so that means the implication of that is I try to abstain from eating animal products, right? So that like that would I would just say no, that's wrong. I would say no, that's a plant-based diet you're talking about. I do additionally eat a plant-based diet, but like that's just wrong, right?
Hmm. I mean, someone would do the same about fascism. I think we agree here.
Well, in the
Yeah,
case of
yeah.
fascism, like if you looked up the definition of fascism and you didn't know what it was,
Hmm.
and it gave you some sort of like basic description of the historical context, some of the fascist leaders, like what they thought, that it was a political ideology. I've got enough information now to get a general gist of what it means. When I look up
Hmm.
vegan, I don't have enough information there to even know what it means, because I don't know by looking up the definition that it's an ethical position. I don't know that. When I look it up, I see, oh, someone's on a diet. It's like looking up the no eggs diet or the no bacon diet. But when I look up the no bacon diet, what they're actually talking about is Muslim or Islamic ways of
Mhm.
is it Islam? Oh, sorry if I'm getting that wrong, but like there's certain things that Muslims don't eat, right? And
Oh yeah, yeah.
if I
Bacon,
looked up,
pigs.
yeah, if I looked up the word Muslim and it said someone who doesn't eat bacon, that wouldn't tell me at all what a Muslim is. Right? They don't eat bacon because of the implications of them being Muslim. It
Mhm.
it's not that they're Muslim because they don't eat bacon. That means that all people who don't eat bacon are Muslims. Like it doesn't even tell me anything about being a Muslim. If I look up the word and it says someone who doesn't eat bacon.
Well, again, the common dictionary is supposed to tell you something, not all of it.
Yeah, we can just tell me
Hmm.
the doctrine that man should live without exploiting animals. What's wrong with that? That is the definition. Why doesn't the dictionary have that? That is literally the definition as given by the Vegan Society.
Hmm.
So it's literally just wrong. Like you agree with me. You've already conceded. Then you went back and then you've conceded again. Now you're sort of like umming and ahhing
Yeah, yeah,
again.
yeah. Just the fact that wrong is like mislead, like not 100% nuanced. We can't turn a common dictionary into a specialized dictionary.
Well, it's not even I'm arguing about specialization at this point. Like I've already said, like when I look up car, I don't need to learn about
Yeah, yeah,
valves and chambers and tappets and piston rings. I don't
yeah.
need to know any of
And
that.
the definition you propose is very it's reasonable. It's very reasonable. I think you're right.
Yeah, because that is the definition.
It should
That's the proper
change.
definition. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. I guess I concede 100%.
cool, man. Nice one. Yeah, yeah. I really do value that you aren't just gonna sort of like draw the debate out and you just like, yep, concede. That's really respectful, man.
Hmm.
A nice one.
But there's a separate definition of what entails a proper definition. That's a whole other can of worms.
Well, a proper definition is just one that seems to correspond to what we mean. And
Mm,
Leslie Cross gave in 1951 a very detailed definition and description and interpretation of that definition.
hmm.
And you can just Google Leslie Cross 1951, and you'll be able to see that. It's about 2 pages of A4, 1.5 pages of A4, something like that.
I use
And
like Gary Steiner's definition of ethical veganism.
oh, okay, I don't know that one.
Oh, the principle that we ought, as far as possible, to issue the use of animals as sources of food, labor, entertainment, and the like, in as much as eating, enslaving, or otherwise doing avoidable violence to one's kin, is fundamentally wrong.
Oh, okay, yeah, so that sort of like implies some sort of marginal case thinking in there, I
And a
guess.
hierarchical sense as well.
Yeah, like yeah, that's cool. That's a different perspective that I have. I think of more of an exploitation relationship myself.
Mm.
But yeah, that's fine. Like if I looked up in the dictionary that, I
Yeah,
wouldn't
nothing
I
like
wouldn't
that would be
object to it.
there.
Yeah, if I looked that up and that was in like the Cambridge or Oxford whatever the fuck dictionary, I saw that I'd be like, okay, not the way that I'd say it, but I'm happy with that. But but the one that I look up, I'm just like, no, that's wrong. But cool. All right, I guess that's